Now how should I rank these? We got a busty glutton. Oh, but the cute android though. Can't forget about her epic return. If we're just focusing on the fan service alone, it's gotta be her. Let's not forget the tomboy. Oh hey, how's it going? Don't mind me, just trying to figure out who is going to be the next top waifu for this season. And honestly, this is a challenge. There are so many prime candidates here. There is no question that this season is the season of waifus. So all of you waifu hunters out there, get ready, because this season is going to be one hell of a ride. So how's it going, everyone? I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I'm A-Mess, and today we are going over the winter 2023 anime season. Now, I'm gonna be honest here. It was difficult to find an anime that I didn't enjoy watching. There were some that I wasn't completely engaged with, but I still enjoyed watching it. Normally for these videos, I rate the show by either recommending that you don't watch it if you have time, or make time to watch it. I typically try to include at least one don't watch it show inside the video, but this season didn't really have one. There were some that I personally didn't vibe with, but they weren't bad in any way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean I'll just tell you outright don't watch it. I'll let you know what it's about and let you decide for yourself, because there are a lot of shows out there and a lot of different genres that people like. And we don't judge here. One last thing before I begin. These shows are not in any particular order. I just went with whichever one caught my eye. I did try to save the best for last, and then talk about the sequels afterwards. But if it was the best show in a certain genre, it got mixed in with the rest. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. The first show I want to talk about is Neir Automata, the anime adaptation of the popular video game. It's about an android organization named Yorha whose mission is to do battle against the machines who have overrun Earth. The story follows 2B and 9S, androids who seek to reclaim Earth for the humans, who are currently residing on the moon. Now, if you've played the game, you could probably guess how things are going to go, but the anime seems to have changed some things. Like 2B seems to display far more emotion than she did in the video game. Like she used to be a stoic character who was emotional at times, but will hold it back in order to carry out her duties. 9S also seems a little different. He used to come off as a little brother character, but he is displaying a lot more confidence. Not saying he didn't have any, he would get excited whenever he was observing machines, but then get embarrassed when 2B berated him for forgetting about his mission. Now, something else that bugged me is the CGI animation. It's nice for the suit transformation, but seeing 2B as the stoic model not having facial expressions during that transformation is super awkward. Luckily, those flight suits aren't used a lot in the video game. I don't know how often they will make an appearance in the anime, especially depending on the pacing. If they combine the first two routes into one and blitz through the story, then we might see it consistently throughout the anime. Honestly, it's just a small thing, so I'm not going to freak out about it, especially since they have the post-credit scenes where they cover the other endings in the game, like blowing up Yorha base ending. A lot of the endings from the video game were just for comedic purposes, so I do look forward to seeing them, even if it's just puppets acting them out. Also, 2B is one of the greatest video game waifus, so there is no doubt that anime watchers will think the same thing. Unfortunately, the emphasis on giving the androids more emotions from the get-go is kind of a killer, so I can't make this into a must-watch, but definitely a highly recommended series for when you have time. Next up, let's discuss The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. It's about a girl named Mahiru Shina, who is the most popular girl in school, whom everyone refers to as the school's angel. Her classmate and neighbor, Fujimiya Amane, notices her one day just sitting on a swing outside in the rain. So he handed her his umbrella and left. Well, he didn't just hand it to her, he forced it onto her. As a result, he got sick. And since Mahiru was his neighbor, she returned the favor by making him dinner to help him get better. This is when she learns that he isn't exactly taking care of himself. So she begins making him dinner at night, as well as motivating him to clean up his house. Seeing as how Fujimiya isn't misinterpreting her kindness as something else, she continues to help him out whenever she can. This is a really cute show, but it also holds some dark secrets, like how Mahiru was depressed to the point where she was sitting alone in the rain. And also, when Fujimiya asked her if she was sitting outside in the rain because she had a fight with her boyfriend, she got mad because he assumed that she did have one. He thought that since she was so popular, it would have been natural for her to have a boyfriend or two. That obviously pissed her off even more. But since Fujimiya is genuinely a nice person, who had lent her his umbrella, she decided to let it slide. What surprised her more though was the fact that Fujimiya didn't ask her to do anything for him. He even said it was okay for her to not return the umbrella, and he didn't press her for something in return, which implies that this has happened to her before, and possibly multiple times. So seeing them start off kind of rocky and slowly work towards being friends made this series very entertaining to watch. It wasn't too quickly paced or too slow to the point where I got bored with it, and then there are the comedic moments on top of that. Like when Mahiru was helping Fujimiya clean his house, she ended up tripping and fell on him, and instead of making it into a sexual scene, they kept it wholesome to not ruin the serious atmosphere they established. It was still funny though, and fit into the episode more naturally than I would have originally thought. Mahito will definitely be on people's top 5 waifu list, especially with how the story revolves around her taking care of Fujimiya. There is also more to come with us learning that Mahito comes from a wealthy family and is now living on her own. So all I have left to say is, if you're a fan of romantic dramas, then this is a must watch. If you're interested in either a romance or a drama, then keep this on your list. At that point, it's not a go out of your way series, especially since the next show on this list is a better romance, but it's a comedy, not a drama. And that show will be Tomo-Chan Is A Girl. We start the show off with meeting Aizawa Tomo as she confesses her love for her best friend, Kubota Junichiro, aka Jun. Jun, however, didn't get it. Jun responded by stating, "I love you too, my best friendo." So he doesn't really acknowledge Tomo as a girl. As a result, he does some funny yet awkward things, like slap her butt or tickle her. Things bros would do and not feel weird about. And of course, Tomo gets mad at him and punches him because of it, which results with them breaking out into a fistfight. We get a little more backstory between the two, including how Jun was confused as to why Tomo was wearing a skirt in middle school, implying he always thought of her as a guy. Also, they both studied karate together, since Tomo's dad was a karate instructor. So Tomo grew up acting violent whenever she got mad, and she was a good fighter on top of it. She was the definition of a tomboy. Despite Jun treating her as a guy, he cares deeply for her and may even have a crush on her. He doesn't like having her angry at him, and whenever their childhood friend Misuzu teases him by telling him about how Tomo is getting along with other guys, Jun gets mad at her and acts out. Like one moment he pushed her out into the rain, and another he stole her scrunchie and threw it out the window. So he does have feelings for her, it's just unclear whether he realizes it or not. But in any case, he does see her as a girl, which is why he didn't join any other clubs. If he's not doing it with her, then there's no point in doing it at all. So this sort of comedic dynamic between them, and the serious side with Jun and Mizuru, makes this a must watch. I know it's nothing new or unique, but it will for sure be the best romance anime of the season. Also tomboy waifu. Enough said. Next up is the first isekai on this list, and that would be the magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and the genius young lady. Now, the isekai elements are not heavily emphasized to the point where it feels like the reincarnated princess in the title is significant. If reincarnated princess was not in the title, I would not have guessed it. The princess, Anis Wine Paletia, aka Anis, is the first princess of the kingdom of Paletia. She is an eccentric princess and adventurer who dreams of one day flying through the sky. However, she is incapable of using magic, despite being a royal. In this world, royals and nobles are born capable of using magic, so Anis being incapable of using it was considered a blemish on the royal bloodline. Her father didn't see it as such, but some of the nobles did. So Anis rescinded her right to the throne and plunged herself into researching magic, to the point where she created all of these incredible magical items. This is where the isekai part comes in. Her memories from her past life allow her to come up with these items like a water boiler or a hair dryer, you know, stuff from our world. While she's focusing on this, her brother and his fiance are going through some difficult circumstances. Her brother, the crown prince Algard von Palatia, aka Al, is displeased with being in an arranged marriage. His fiance Euphilia Magenta, aka Yuffie, is doing everything she can to be a proper lady and a good future queen. When she noticed her fiance was spending a lot of time with another girl, Lainey Cayenne, she warns them both about the dangers of them being too close to one another. It could ruin the prince's reputation if rumors began to circulate. However, Al had other plans in mind. During their graduation ball, he announced to everyone that he's annulling their marriage and taking Lainey as his wife. He even claimed that Yuffie was bullying Lainey. Yuffie was so shocked by this that she couldn't get a single word out, even when her quote-unquote friends came out and said she made them bully Lainey for her. Which, by the way, none of this was true. We've seen Yuffie trying to be a proper noble lady, so doing something like this was out of the question for her. She even went out of her way to warn Lainey that if she gets too close to the prince, who was engaged, there could be some unsightly rumors about them. And this was not a threat, she was genuinely concerned for her. Then suddenly, in the middle of the ball, Anis, who was testing her new flying broomstick, crashed into the window. After reading the room, she quickly deduced that her brother called off their engagement. So Anis took Yuffie away and went to her father to tell him of the situation. We also learned that Anis is kind of into Yuffie, so she was elated to have been able to carry her away. Her father, the king, Orphanus von Palatia, was enraged by her actions, until he learned of why she did it. After hearing of his son's actions, he couldn't apologize enough to his friend, Yuffie's father, Prime Minister Grant Magenta. Good news is, Anis was willing to take charge of Yuffie. After her humiliation, in order for her to aid in improving her magicology. Due to the massive potential of magicology, both Ophanis and Grants allowed it. They had hoped that the two of them could enjoy their time together and hopefully lead the kingdom into a new future. So this series doesn't have one, but two waifu candidates. Honest with her goofball personality, and Yuffie with her noble atmosphere. They will both be definitely on waifu hunters' radars. The comedic element of the show are fantastic, even during serious situations. Just throw Honest into any situation and she instantly turns everything into a joke. Even her serious moments are lighthearted and lack any form of sternness. So out of all of the isekais this season, I would place this at the top. It's a must watch in terms of isekais, but for the seasonal content, I have other shows that are rated a little higher than it. I will talk about those shows later on in the video. So for now, let's move on to the next one. Now let's talk about a fantasy. Let's go with Reborn to Master the Blade, from Hero King to Extraordinary Squire. It's about a Hero King English who on his deathbed receives a visit from the goddess Alistia. She had apparently made him into a divine knight. He uses abilities to create a safe and prosperous kingdom. In order to reward him for this, the goddess offered to grant him any wish he desired. He had wished to be able to be reborn not as a king, but as someone who could dedicate their life to training with the sword. She had granted him his wish and he was reborn with his divine blessings intact. Because of this, he had the capability to manipulate Aether. Aether is the foundation of all creation, so being able to manipulate it means you can alter reality to your whim. It is normally something only gods can do, but with his blessings, he can do so as well. Now, there was just one small problem. He is not a he is now a she. He was somehow reborn as a girl, but he had incredible powers from the get-go. So she was able to train with the sword to the point where at a young age, she is considered a prodigy. This does seem like a fun little show to watch. It is sure to entertain anyone who watches it. Even if you are not a fan of having an overpowered protagonist, the comedic timing makes up for it. When all hope is lost, the protagonist decides to stop hiding their power and help, but Iglis doesn't use her divine blessing unless it's in an extreme situation. Her goal is to train with the sword, not to be a hero for the ages. She had already done that in her previous life, so her blessing is more of a bonus as she works hard to take her sword skills to new heights. This may not be the best show this season, but it's good enough to get a few chuckles out of you. So I say watch it if you have time. There are funnier shows like Magic Revolution, for example, but this is still an enjoyable show if you are interested, especially since it has a swordsman waifu. You know what? Let's talk about another isekai, with saving 80,000 gold in another world for my retirement. It has a pretty simple premise. A girl named Mitsuha falls to her death and wakes up in another world. She then wanders around for a few days until she runs into this girl, Colette. Colette takes her back to her place so she can eat and rest. After Mitsuha felt better, she wanted to thank Colette by helping her go out and collect edible plants in the forest. They ended up stumbling onto a pack of hungry wolves. Mitsuha helped Colette up a tree and drew the wolves' attention. She unfortunately didn't get very far before tripping and falling. And right before the wolves jumped onto her, she teleported away. She then woke up in her brother's room. Mitsuha and her brother had always had a good relationship. However, him and their parents ended up passing away in a car accident. She still thinks back to their conversations and tries to figure things out by wondering what advice her brother would give her. So when she was in danger, all she could think of was that she wanted her brother to come and save her. That led her to being teleported to his room. She had wanted to stay there, but she didn't want to abandon Coletta. So she grabbed whatever she could from around her house, including her brother's hunting slingshot, and teleported back there. After defeating the wolves, she collapsed from shock. She then had a vision of a god whom she had apparently stole a piece of his power from. Apparently when she first fell, the god was drawn to her desire to live, and she had accidentally grabbed his corporeal form and tore a piece of his power away, granting her the ability to teleport between worlds, and also some regenerative abilities on top of that, although it's only a minor one. Severe injuries will take longer to heal, but the main focus here is her ability to teleport between the two, or possibly even other worlds. After awakening and receiving the reward money for the wolves, Mitsuha decided to use this teleport ability to work in the new world and bring the money back to her old one so she could save up for her retirement. As far as the comedic elements go, this show is good, but the story and characters are a bit lacking. Not to the point of don't watch it. I still enjoyed it, but there are a lot of better shows out there. Also, the protagonist looks really young, so I can't even call her a waifu. So watch it if you have absolutely nothing else that catches your interest. You could still enjoy it, but you will definitely forget this series by the start of the next one. Next up on my list, I want to mention Chilling in My 30s after getting fired from the Demon King's army. Another really simple premise. It's a story about the dark soldier Dariel being kicked out of the Demon King's army because he was too weak. He was raised by the previous Demon King to be a loyal soldier. However, unlike other demons, Dariel didn't have the capability to use magic, so the new Demon King kicked him out. After dedicating his life to serving the demon army, Dariel had nowhere to go, so he left and ended up saving a woman who was being attacked by an ape monster. This woman, Malika, had wanted to thank him with a meal, so she took him back to her village and along with her father had him become an adventurer. He tried to refuse, but they forced a registration ritual upon him. Now, when a human does this ritual, they become an adventurer, but when a demon does it, their bodies get destroyed. So when Dariel did it, he freaked out thinking it was going to kill him. However, it worked as intended and he became an adventurer. That was when he realized he was actually a human, and apparently a really skilled one at that. When you become an adventurer, you gain the ability to use aura. There are 4 types of auras: slash, hit, protect, and sting. Dariel could apparently use all 4 perfectly. Normally someone can only use 1 at a decent level, while Dariel used all of them at an elite level. So now Dariel begins his new life as an overpowered anime protagonist. So yeah, this story has a weird beginning with there being a human in the Demon King's army. But whatever. This isn't a show you're supposed to take seriously. So if you watch for the comedic moments, you'll be fine. You'll have a blast. If you want a deep, fulfilling story, then this show is not for you. However, if you're looking for a cute anime waifu, then you've come to the right place. Malika is one of the better looking waifus this season, and she has a massive plot line where she gives Dariel a place to go after being kicked out of the Demon King's army. Her massive plot line is also a huge motivation for Dariel. Whenever he tries to get away and leave the village, Malika will plead for him to stay. Dariel would be hesitant because he feared being discovered and killed because he's a demon. Oh, well, he assumed he was a demon. But it's Malika's massive plot that motivated him to stay. The show even emphasizes Dariel staring at Malika's plot whenever he made a decision. So I'll rate this as a watch if you have time, or if you're a degenerate who is into big plotted waifus and don't want to have to worry about ecchi scenes showing up in the middle of the anime. Running along with the theme of a simple premise, let's talk about farming in another world. We start with our protagonist, Hiraku Machio, passing away. The god of that world took pity on him because he screwed up, causing him to live a miserable life. So he teamed up with the god of agriculture to grant him his wish of being able to live his life out as a farmer. Hiraku was gifted with the almighty farming tool, allowing him to use enhanced tools that allow him to farm with ease, and also granted a strong body that could handle that workload. He then reincarnated into the new world and lives out his life as a farmer. That is the whole storyline. It's a farming slice of life taking place in a fantasy world. The protagonist spends his day cultivating the land around him, while building huts and other stuff to live comfortably there. Unfortunately, this series begins with the end result, so we know how things are going to turn out, but we do get the chance to see how he reached that point. Only thing is that this doesn't seem to be an action anime. I'm saying this because action is not one of the genres tagged in this series, so I can't say for certain that there's going to be no action because Hiraku is cultivating the land in the middle of a very dangerous forest. Even if there are some action moments, the series will not put a big emphasis on it. This also seems like a harem anime, so there will be a plethora of waifus to choose from. I probably won't be continuing this series, not because it's bad. It's certainly not bad enough to say don't watch it. I've seen far worse. Most recently being in the previous season. There were several from that season, so I can't bring myself to say ignore this series. It's the type of show you would watch if you're interested in an isekai slice of life. Now, this should be the last fantasy of the season, and it's Ningen Fushin. Adventurers who don't believe in humanity will save the world. It's about a group of adventurers who were scorned by someone in one way or another. There's the swashbuckler Nick, who was kicked out of his party by his mentor. Then his girlfriend revealed that she was dating him just to take as much money from him as possible. So with nothing left to believe in, he ended up falling for an idol who invited him to one of her performances. Afterwards, he became an idol otaku who blows all of his money on her products. Then there is the wizard, Tiana at NFL, who was attending a prestigious magical academy. Her fiancé was jealous that she had better grades than him, and so he ridiculed her and claimed that she bribed her way to being the top of the class. When she tried to defend herself, he claimed that she was only lying and began to pile on more accusations. After that, she couldn't bring herself to be in the same school anymore, so she left. She tried to find work, but no one would hire her. She then got addicted to gambling after one miraculous victory, and was now in debt. She tried to find work as an adventurer, but due to her scary eyes, everyone ended up avoiding her. Third is the priest Zem, who would pay a little girl for bringing him medical herbs. She had feelings for him, but when he told her that he's a priest and he can't date anyone, she got mad and told everyone he violated her. Zem was then arrested and excommunicated from the church. He ended up receiving gear from a friend and goes off to become an adventurer. However, while traveling to the city where the Adventurers Guild is located, he ends up developing a taste for women. Since he was excommunicated, he had no reason to hold back anymore, so he started to go to cabaret clubs and fool around. Lastly is a warrior dragonoid named Kudan, who seems to not want to talk about her past. They join forces because they don't trust anyone and have no one to turn to, so they decided to team up despite not trusting each other. They believed it would be better to cooperate with each other so they could take on quests and at least find some way to make money. This seems like a nice fantasy anime with a dark atmosphere. With the main characters having been betrayed, they now focus on the negatives and are completely wary of other people. So it will be interesting to see the dynamic between them develop as the series goes on. As for the waifus, we have two unique ones. A petite waifu with a mean look in her eye, and a human dragon hybrid waifu. So take your pick. This series is a must-watch for fantasy fans. In my opinion, it's the best fantasy of the season. Next, let's cover the reboot of Trigun Stampede. Since this is a reboot, I'm not going to discuss it too much. I will just say this. The series seems to focus more on the serious aspect of the story, but when I first heard of it, I thought this was going to be closer to the manga since the original anime was loosely based off of it. However, it doesn't appear to be so, because the anime cut out one of my favorite characters, Millie Thompson. She is not only missing in the show, but the cover art as well. Also, the CGI is not looking too sharp. The action scenes are cool, but the facial expressions are so ugly. I don't want to rule out this series, especially if it's supposed to follow the manga more than the original. But I can say the moment they took Millie, the best character in the series, out of the show, they ruined the series. I'll still watch it, and I recommend you do too if you have time for it. Next, let's talk about Revenger. It follows Kurima Raizo after he was deceived into killing his father-in-law. He joins up with an assassin named Usui Yuen, who kills heinous people who have hurt others and killed for their own pleasure. The way he accepts requests is by having the people hiring them bite into a gold coin and seeing how deep the bite mark goes. He uses this to gauge the level of their rage. He then carries out the punishment in the name of their god Deus. Raizo takes advantage of Usui and his gang in order to kill the man who set him up, and then he rushes over to his wife, who had believed he killed her father, then died himself. He intends to apologize and even take his own life in order to atone for his sin. However, by the time he found her, she had already taken her life, so Usui forcefully recruits him to join his crew and help him carry out other people's revenge. Now, it may seem like Usui is doing this for his religious beliefs, carrying out God's judgment and his revenge against the heinous criminals. Hence why they gauge a person's rage with their bite mark in a gold coin. But there's also some discourse between Japan and England in the background. So you get the feeling that their mission is to weaken Japan's forces by killing off influential figures. However, they are genuinely assassinating horrible people, who clearly tormented and manipulated others for their own gain. So you can think of this as an Akame ga Kill clone, but instead of a medieval time period, it's actually an Edo Japan time period. If you loved Akame ga Kill, then this is a must watch. Otherwise, watch if you have time. Sadly, there are no standout waifus in the series, but there is a colorful cast of husbandos for those of you who are interested. To make up for the lack of waifus, let's talk about an ecchi anime for all of you cultured viewers out there. This one I am a little uncomfortable with though, so I only saw the first episode just to talk about it. It's My Life as Inuka-sama's Dog. Yeah, as the title indicates, it's about a dude who gets turned into a dog and taken in by his crush. That's the story in a nutshell. It has some POV scenes, but that's not how the show is for the entire time. It does go third person from time to time, but the purpose of this anime is to fulfill a group of people's fantasy of being a cute girl's dog. No kink shaming here, but it's not for me. I watched the first episode just to see if there's comedic elements or if it's just a kink fulfillment anime. And from the first episode alone, that does seem to be the case. For those of you who want your waifu to treat you like a dog, in a kind and caring way, here you go. This is all you. Now as for the rest of you, there's no need to watch it. Unless you want to see a cute girl baiting with a dog. Now, for the ecchi that I actually kind of enjoyed, Ayakashi Triangle. It's about a girl named Kanade Suzu who is an Ayakashi medium, someone who draws these spirits called Ayakashi to herself. Her best friend Kazamaki Matsuri is the descendant of a legendary ninja exorcist clan. He became an exorcist to protect Suzu from the evil Ayakashi, who would seek to do her harm. Suzu, however, is unaware of the fact that she is a medium. She sees Ayakashi as friends and completely harmless, which most of them are. However, she caught the attention of the Ayakashi king, Shirogane. At first, Matsuri and Suzu were deceived by Shirogane's appearance, but when he got Suzu alone, he revealed his true form to her and tried to eat her. But in typical anime fashion, the hero shows up in the last moment to save the girl. This led to a little bit of a romantic situation between Shuzu and Mitsuri, which irritated Shirogane. He was not going to allow them to get all lovey-dovey at his expense. Matsuri then realized that Shirogane was too strong for him to defeat, so he decided to seal him away instead. Unfortunately, Shirogane refused to go down without a fight, especially since he did not want Mitsuri and Suzu to get romantic after he was beaten. So he cursed Matsuri to be a woman. Now, Matsuri wasn't strong enough to seal away Shirogane completely, but did weaken him to the point where he is stuck as an adorable cat. But now Mitsuri is a girl, which is absolutely hilarious, especially since Suzu has a huge crush on him. Now, does him turning into a girl make her lose her feelings for him? This is an ecchi, so I don't need to watch the whole series to tell you, no, she doesn't. Suzu is head over heels for him. Well, her now. So there's definitely going to be some nice beauty action. They've already put a huge emphasis on how horny she is for Matsuri. So yeah, I'm confident there will be a lot of girl-on-girl stuff going on. If you're a degenerate, then this is a must-watch. For all of you normies out there, if you want a good chuckle, then watch this if you have time. Now, before I get into the best of the season, I want to give some honorable mentions. These are shows that I only saw the first episode for, but wasn't interested enough to continue watching. They weren't bad to the point of me saying don't watch them, it's just I wasn't vibing with them. So I'm just mentioning them to see if you guys have an interest in them. First, High Card. An action anime about people hunting for magical cards that turn into gloves, with each card having its own unique ability. Second, Malevolent Spirits Monogatari, a show about a boy whose siblings were killed by a spirit, so he goes around attacking any spirit he sees instead of peacefully negotiating with them. So his grandpa sends him to live with a woman who has several spirits working under her, in order for the boy to get a better understanding of these spirits. Third, Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skills, an isekai cooking fantasy where the protagonist is an adventurer who can get any ingredient he desires using an online shopping skill. He then uses his unique ingredients to cook incredible food, which he then uses to gain the interest of a powerful beast Fenrir, whom he then forms a contract with. He continues traveling around going on adventures and cooking more delicious food. Fourth, The Legend of Heroes Trial of Cold Steel North War. This is an anime based off a game series. This title is one of the newer installments, and you can tell there is a lot of backstory that was probably a part of the older titles. The premise with a massive war and beasts attacking people while this war rages on will definitely draw in a lot of people to it, but the fact that this is the only anime adaptation of this game series leaves a lot of background info unexplained. So I will not be continuing this series due to the first episode having a lot of details that went over my head. Then the fifth show is Spy Classroom. As the name implies, it's a school to train young spies, but the teacher can't teach. It's comedic and has an interesting premise. I just don't like the fact that all of the students are girls. It makes me think the story isn't going to take itself seriously. It also doesn't help that the first episode had a lot of fan service scenes in it that just took me out of the show. There are other shows if you want fan service, so you can watch those instead. And then finally, Giant Beasts of Ours, which is an anime about paladins and clerics forming contracts with each other to take on giant monsters. There is a lot of mysterious events going on in the background, which is a positive and negative. The main story doesn't give you enough info to follow it completely, but it is exciting. I just don't intend on watching any more episodes. Now for the main event. There are two seasonal shows that really caught my attention. The first being Endo and Kobayashi Live. The latest on tsundere villainess Lizoletta is about a boy named Endo and a girl named Kobayashi playing a dating sim together, when suddenly the game's prince character, Sequals, starts talking to them and referring to them as gods. Kobayashi begins to give Sequals some advice in order to help save the game's villainess, Lizoletta. You see, Lizoletta is not a bad person, she's just a tsundere, so she can't say what she's actually feeling. Kobayashi feels bad for Lizoletta and wants to find a way to save her, since they can actually talk to the game's characters now. In the game, we see characters living their lives out normally, and then the prince suddenly gets the ability to hear these voices, which he interpreted as the voice of gods. There is in-game lore that states some people can awaken to this ability, so he didn't doubt himself when he first came up with that theory. We the viewers know that it's just a couple of gamers playing a game, while also giving some commentary and analysis while playing. But now that they know the in-game characters can hear them, they want to try and avoid outright telling them what to do. They instead decide to give them advice here and there to lead the story to a brighter future. Now, this series is hilarious and intriguing. Instead of doing an isekai where the characters awaken into the video game world, they are allowing them to communicate with the characters in the game. This, in my opinion, is far more comedic than simply teleporting them to that world. Also, there is a bit of a romantic element with Endo having a crush on Kobayashi and them guiding Sigwald and Lizoletta together. Now, this show has two waifus who are similar to other characters. Kobayashi is the goofball type while Lizoletta is the noble type. Wait, actually Lizuleta is a tsundere, so there is one original waifu in this series. This could be the funniest show this season, so I say this is a must watch for the comedy alone. If you want something a little more serious, then the next show will be perfect for you. Finally, the best seasonal series, The Tale of Outcasts. It's about an immortal demon named Marbus, who is bored with life, and an orphan girl who is tormented by a priest in order to raise money for him. The girl, who is named Wisteria, has a unique ability that lets her see demons, and she just so happened to see Marbus as he walked by. He was surprised that there was someone who can actually see him in his demon form. He does have a human form which others can see, but it's exhausting for him to remain in that form, so he rarely uses it. Marbus decided to keep this miserable girl company in order to relieve some of his boredom. Then the priest sells Wisteria to a perverted lord. At first, it doesn't look like Marbus is going to go help her. That is, until he hears that the lord enjoys torturing children. Then Marbus became furious and rushed over to rescue her. However, that begins to destroy his body. Apparently, demons cannot aid a human without forming a contract with them, and the human has to give up something important in exchange. If the demon helps them without that contract, their bodies begin to break down. After killing that perverted lord, a demon suddenly appears out of nowhere and attacks the weakened Marbus. So Wisteria, wanting to be with Marbus, the only person outside of her brother who brought her happiness, decided to sacrifice her eyes to save him. After regaining its full power, the other demon was shocked to see that he was fighting one of the 13 calamities, and then he was wiped out in an instant. So this series has this morbid atmosphere with Wisteria having this horrible backstory, and giving up her precious eyes in order to save this demon. The reason she was so willing to give them up was because she would rather listen to the stories Marbus would tell her, and spend the rest of her days with him. There's also the fact that her brother Snow, who was sold off before her, shows up. He is now an exorcist who hunts demons. He managed to track down Wisteria to the perverted lord's mansion, but by the time he got there, the mansion was destroyed and his sister was nowhere to be found. So this will be an amazing story where we see how Wisteria and Marbus live out their new lives while avoiding all of the misfortune that comes their way, like other demons, exorcists, and more over-the-top sadistic humans. The supernatural drama will definitely draw in any viewer who is watching it. I do think the sadistic priest and the lord were turned up a little too much, but they were made over the top because this is the prologue, and I don't think the rest of this series is going to have characters this sadistic throughout it. This is a drama, so there will definitely be some dark times for the two. In my opinion, this will definitely be the best show from this season. There are some sequels that are rated higher just because I've been looking forward to them. Also, no waifus for this series. Unfortunately, Wisteria is too young, but it's still a must-watch series. Now, a quick rundown of the sequels. I'm only covering the must-watches for this section. On Netflix, we got The Way of the House Husband, a comedy about a former Yakuza member turned house husband. I really enjoyed the first season. It had me dying from laughter. It's a good show if you want to see something that's wacky and goofy. Also on Netflix, there's Record of Ragnarok, a battle anime where historical figures battle against gods from various religions and mythos. The first season had some animation problems, but I think Netflix took the criticism to heart and will come out strong for the second season, especially since the first fight of the second season is the most popular in the manga. Now to one that I forgot was getting a sequel, Bufudi, I Don't Want to Get Hurt So I'll Max Out My Defense. This is about a girl playing a dive VR game for the first time, and she accidentally creates the most broken build possible. This show's selling point is how cute and funny Maple is, and how even though she isn't trying to become the best player in the game, all of her goofy antics ground her powerful, unique skills that put her over the top. Next up, Vinland Saga, a story about a Viking boy out for revenge. This next season is more of a development season, rather than a season full of action. I read the manga, and honestly, this arc is the boring arc, but it ends on a high note, so it will definitely be worth the watch. Now for my most anticipated sequel, Tokyo Revengers. It's about a dude named Takamichi who gains the ability to time travel to go back in time and save his ex-girlfriend. He goes back and forth between the two timelines and gets involved with the gang responsible for her death and ends up befriending the leaders. So Takamichi is on a mission to prevent the gang from becoming corrupt and turning into a major criminal organization. The only reason I have this show higher than Vinland Saga is because I read the Vinland Saga manga, but that doesn't take away from how amazing the first season of Tokyo Revengers was. I'm excited to see where the second season goes. Even though the time travel mechanic is a little wonky, it doesn't diminish the story. Everyone who watches this series will love it, no doubt about that. And that will do it for this season. Now, I didn't include every show from this season. There might have been some that I had missed. So let me know if there are any worthwhile ones in the comment section down below. Also, let me know what you all think about my rankings. Is there any shows that you thought I should have made into a must watch? Did I rate one too high? No need to hold back, give me your honest opinion. And with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!